Thank you very much, Lieutenant General. It's very difficult to speak after Professor Mehta. I will give you a few things that I am a diplomat working at the EU Embassy here. I'm a director in charge of science and education, and as my bio was read out, I have been working in diplomacy in different parts of the world for the European Union. And it's a pleasure also being here on the same panel as Professor Ashok, because I've been more than a decade at the board of the Club of Rome at the EU chapter. And it has always inspired me that we should think of others. Actually, Professor Mehta, you quoted Mahatma Gandhi. I will go there to his birthplace on the 2nd of October, because myself, I'm born 97 years on the same day as Mahatma Gandhi. And my own mother, when she delivered me, I was born on her birthday. So we have some links. Let me, maybe in just a few minutes, give you my own feeling of AI and SDG and how myself, as a diplomat, I am acting. For me, AI is just a tool, and I can tell you well, because I am myself a biomedical and a robotic engineer, so I've been developing systems, developing AI systems, robotic systems. AI is a hammer, but you can use a hammer very well to put a nail to repair this board, for example. You can use a hammer by a judge. You can use a hammer if you want to make a robbery. So these are tools, and we have to know the limit of tools. And these have been said since this morning in terms of regulatory aspects. And I will tell you first, probably where I see that we lack to look at AI. I didn't hear so much so far about financing responsibility of the financial world. Probably I'm 56. When I was born, financial world, of course, existed. But what I can see is a rapidity which we are faced now is not the rapidity of technology. Not anymore. It's a rapidity by which the financial world exploit resources, being natural resources. We have known this with the Club of Rome, but now people. And I think AI has a big responsibility to be used very fairly by the financial world. So we at the European Union have been developing and starting what we started many years ago. You may have heard corporate social responsibility, triple bottom line. I remember 20 years ago, I was already working on this issue with the FTSE, with the New York Stock Exchange, how to put the responsibility of companies. But now it has changed. It's not anymore companies, it's people. So you invest yourself, you are part of the system in which you degrade the system. And this is probably the limit of AI. So AI itself has a danger. And AI, artificial intelligence, even though it has mostly positive effects, it carries a huge danger in itself. So we need the role of government. I am there to speak to you about as a government official. But in my personal capacity, I can tell you that it's like if I am in a car with an accelerator to use technology and with a brake to say, no, we should stop, we must make a pause, we must have everybody on board, NGOs, civil society, we must think of the system at the same time as we build the system. So it's extremely difficult, but if we don't do that, we are already now seeing the effect that Professor Mehta and everybody this morning was mentioning. Those are immediate effects because the money is flowing much faster than technology. And venture capitalists are, in fact, killing and breaking the branch where they are sitting. Financial capital, if I give you a few examples that we have in Europe, for example, we used to have in cities, in villages, a restaurant. Venture capitalists came, they say, okay, we have a good marketing tool, you are all part of a brand. And slowly, because by the principle of equities, they invest in the restaurant, not because they like the food, but because they want to make profit for their stakeholders, which is very, very natural. But few years down the line, the restaurant is bankrupt because the restaurant has to reimburse every month a certain amount that is always increasing. And at the end of the day, it's like I give you a second example. In Europe, we use robotics in Ireland, for example, for milking cows. Automatic. Those systems are so expensive that the farmers enter in an economic system where they borrow from the bank, and for the first 10 years, for the first 15 years, they refund the bank. They make no profit. It's the same with solar energy. We had it in Europe. I don't know the situation in India. I've only been 3 months in India. It's a huge bankruptcy. Citizens have been frauded most of the time by governments, in fact, by local governments. And now they have an old system on their roof, which is 10 years old in terms of technology, that has not given them a penny. So we must think of aligning accounting rules with the resources. This is my first point. The second negative point on AI was mentioned a little bit today, was the huge energy consumption that it carries using IT. I told you I am a telecom engineer, so I know how an IT system, it's amazing. It's amazing. The footprint of AI is not measured. And if you Google, you can even see that Microsoft was not establishing its own footprint just a few years ago. Google, the GAFA, were not establishing, not divulging their own footprint. We have a problem here. We must do it. And it's again back to the responsibility of business. My third point is, because I have always back in my mind my thinking as a Club of Rome member, is you cannot predict the future if you don't look at the past. So when because we finance a lot of studies as government officials about foresight, planning, what's going to happen in 30 years, 50 years, and I always say with the great people who are doing foresight, okay, you want to give me a foresight in 50 years, so in 2070. But please, I don't want. I want first you give me a back sight. What happened since 1970? And in 1972, you probably, and Professor Koshla, of course, knows, Denis Meadows and many colleagues at the Club of Rome already put the warning on limit to growth. This was in 1970, so 50 years back. But where will we be in 2070? I have to share something because a few weeks ago, the EU president, the European Commission President von der Leyen was here, and I was myself in meeting with her and Prime Minister Modi. And independently from the political analysis, it was very interesting. Modi and his team were saying India will become carbon independent before celebrating the 100 years of independence. And I say, well, it's great, because it must be so. You have to be carbon independent in India. So, and this is soon. This is maybe from now, 2020. By 2070, it's going to happen, or earlier. So you cannot do foresight if you don't look where you have been, despite the scale, despite the acceleration of change. Time as an absolute value that you must respect. So this were, and just to close on this last third point on foresight, and I will advise you, because Professor Mehta was mentioning Matrix. I mean, I believe most of you who has seen Back to the Future. It was in a movie in 1982. I would like to know who has seen, if you could raise your hand. It's a great movie. It's amazing because we must build confidence in our future, but to do so, we must look backward. And it's not because I'm getting older, is because I strongly believe of the human responsibility is based on values, on fundamentals, on evolution, on very normal evolution, even though those evolutions are now endangered by the speed of the change. Human beings cannot necessarily cope with the speed, and I am not telling you about nature, if nature can adapt as quick as humans. So I'm ending here my brief introduction because I want to give time to have questions. But I can show you my notes. My note was what I was going to say. I had only a few words, but because I was listening since lunchtime, I started to write what I was hearing, and I was very pleased, Mr. Moss, for you inviting me, because I've learned as much as I try to transmit now. Thank you to everybody in the room and on the panel. Thank you.